Hello guys, so welcome back to another video. In the previous video we discussed on how you can insert a single row into the database, of course the SQLite database, and then we defined this country, the country ID, and then we inserted it into the database. But now I want us to add a new function, and this function is going to allow inserting multiple rows into the database. So we're going to define a function. We can call it maybe insert multiple, and in this case, since we are going to take an array of countries, we also have to account for that. Okay, and when inserting a multiple of rows into an SQL database, you have to go through this procedure. First, to define we begin the transaction, because for better performance, and then you prepare your statement, and then you use a for loop. You can loop through the countries, you insert them individually using the statement. So of course the first thing we need the EB, replace the database, and then we have to get the countries. Of course it's an array of countries. What is that country? Then we're just going to return the error in this case. Okay, of course you can define several of them. So, and then the first thing we're going to do, you're going to define start the transaction, because you can just call it tx, because with an error. I'm just going to say db.begin. So what this does, is going to start the transaction that you're going to use. And of course you handle the error, then we can just going to return the error. Okay, then after defining a transaction, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare the statement. We're just going to can just say maybe statement, of course going to also return an error. Then you're going to use the transaction that we've defined, and then we're just going to say prepare. Okay, now for this, in our case we are inserting, so I can just come here and just say insert into the table countries. Of course, then you have the name, population, area, and we're going to define the values 1, 2, 3. Okay, so basically just a recap, we're getting these values from this name, population, the area. Then after defining the statement, it's going to insert into the countries table. Of course, we also handle the error in this case, and just copy that. Then the only thing I'm going to add here, I'm going to just say ta dot rollback. Okay, yes, there is an error. Then finally, after defining our statements, have to ensure that this statement not closed till the execution of this function is done. So just going to defer statement not close. Then finally we can begin inserting our countries. So we're just going to use a for loop with range. Okay, instead of v we can maybe see. Then here we're going to have the countries, of course, the countries we're going to define. Then we're going to execute. Okay, going to execute statement, execute. Okay, we're going to need the name, we're going to need the population, and we're going to need the area. I'm just going to copy this. Okay, sorry, this is supposed to be R. So we are looping through the countries, and then we are executing this SQL here to insert individual rows into the database. And then after successful, just going to commit the transaction, to commit the transaction. Okay, so this is what we're doing here. We are defining a transaction, or just at the beginning the transaction. Then we are preparing the statement, of course, for inserting the details into the countries table. And then finally we are deferring closing this statement until the function executes. And then finally we're looping through the countries we're going to provide, and then we insert them individually into the table. So we're going to come back here to our function. Then now we have to define our function, our countries. So I'm just going to get rid of this. Okay, so I can just copy this because I'll definitely need it. Just do that since it's an array. Okay, then we're going to need this. Let me just copy this, do that, and paste that. Okay, let's on it. Wow, okay, can add URL. Okay, just going to copy this. Maybe I can say Anya, put 3, 6, in Uganda, put 2, 5. Okay, so I'm defining that. I can just call these countries, array of countries, and then finally come back here. The area it is that many multiple, I mean, plus the countries, air. Then I can just come here and say countries started successfully. Okay, so basically that's what thinking about. We define the function, and now let's see. So I'll just delete this database, then I can run the function. Okay, countries inserted successfully. So basically we have successfully added some data to our database. Of course, we inserted these multiple countries to our database, and as you can see, there is no error. So in the next video, we're going to start seeing how we can start getting the data that we're already inserting into the database. So thank you guys, and see you in the next video.